The president has given the strongest indication yet about how he intends to run the country's security. He therefore charged the minister designates for defense and national security to ensure that the peace of Ghana is safeguarded for the entire citizenship.
National security laws of our country, principally the Security and Intelligence Agencies Act, Act 526, provides that a minister should be appointed, should be designated as being responsible for the national security, who will then be able to answer to Parliament and provide accountability for the conduct of the national security to Parliament. And that balance about security and freedom is best protected when there are accountable officials who are responsible for the apparatus before the Parliament. So I've decided to designate a minister responsible for national security. So that is Mr. Albert Kandapa, has become somebody very conversant with the problems and the issues confronting our security, the armed forces especially, of our country. I believe that he's going to be able to provide a fresh perspective on some of the problems that the armed forces have and be able to re-establish the balance within the armed forces and make sure that we have a modern armed forces in Ghana that is dealing with the problems of armed forces today, not necessarily responding to the armed forces issues of yesterday. Promote him and assist him in his upward career. It is the Minister of Interior that is principally responsible for ensuring our domestic peace and security. We always believed that to have a responsible leader of that ministry is so important to the development of our democracy, that he's just the right man to provide the leadership for our Interior Ministry and give us that balanced response to issues of security and development.
All right, so clearly it seems that the issue of security is quite prime to the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's team, and would want to find out really what does the list of names he is giving, what kind of picture does it paint with regard to security? We have been joined in studio by David Agbe. He is the Executive Director for the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. So let me just welcome him and then bring him into this discussion. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Matt.
Okay. To start with, we would want to consider the issues regarding security. I mean, there are those who are saying that we already have a national security advisor, we have a national security coordinator, we have a minister of designate for interior, minister designate for defense, and then now he has proposed the minister designate for national security. What does this tell you as someone who is, quite concerned about issues of security?
Yes, Martin, I must say that it's, highly commendable that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has appointed Mr. Kandapa to steer the affairs of that ministry. I think that it is in line with our constitution and then the National Security and Intelligence Act 526, as he made, mention. But I think more importantly that we should be able to see security as an embodiment of our society. And so anytime that our security agencies are not performing creditably well, then it tells us that we as citizens, we are vulnerable. And so whilst, President is appointing somebody to steer the affairs of our national security, it tells us clearly that he wants to ensure that there is freedom in the country, there is respect of law, also making it a critical point that the livelihood of every individual, the protections of our property and individual, life is quite paramount. And so security... Isn't there the likelihood of a duplication of rules? Because if we have
I mean, the National Security Advisor and Coordinator, theirs is different, but the Interior Ministry's role and that of the Minister for National Security, could there not be an overlap anywhere?
I think many people are raising such a concern that there could be duplication of roles, but we should also bear in mind that we are in constitutional era, and some of those positions is in line with our constitution. When you read Article 83 of our constitution, it made mention of the Minister of Defense, Interior, and all those functions. And quoting the National Security and Intelligence Act 526 also stipulate clearly that we need to have our National Security Minister. And so when you read Article 83, it spells out all the functions of a National Security Coordinator or National Security Council, what they need to do. And so it is quite paramount that those positions shouldn't be the point of discussion that it is duplication of functions. What ordinary citizens, myself and you and everybody, what we need is the protections of every citizen and our territorial boundaries. And you have run a lot of stories about terrorism staring at everybody, as we speak, in our neighboring countries. It is all over. And so there is a need for us to ensure that we have our eyes on the ball, whilst we have international communities supporting us day and daily, of our activities. We should also, have it at the back of our mind that the international system is not all that serene. It is quite fragile, and so the protections of our country and our territorial boundaries are very, very important.
Prime. I was actually coming to that, looking at the fact that in the West African sub-region and then on the continent itself, there seem to be some major security issues. So with this team that he has assembled, I mean, you mentioned Kandapar specifically. You think that they have the acumen and experience to be able to safeguard our security pretty well?
Martin, let me say that Kandapar, I've known Kandapar for so many years now, when he was a member of parliament for Agbe. I stayed in Ashanti region, for almost all my life. So I do know everybody that comes from Ashanti region. And he is a chartered accountant by profession. Right. He has worked with ECG for so many years, budgetary, finance, and all the department. He's a finance person, he's an accountant, but then understanding of the security architecture is something that he does not have, if I could say, the qualification, paper qualification. But then he was appointed during President Kufuor's, reign. Okay. He was, a Minister of Interior. So I believe that the technical people there would have schooled him for him to understand how security agencies, actually need to work. And he has played a critical role during, his time. And ministerial positions too, you are a figurehead there. You need to understand how security agencies work. And you also need to learn, from people who have the institutional, memory to steer their affairs. So it is about ability to listen and be able to learn about how security agencies, need to work. And I believe that Kandapar will be able to learn and be able to understand how security agencies
and clearly
work.
Because
it also goes with discipline of minds. And I believe that Kandapar, Nitiwood and co will be able to discipline their minds very well, to be able to learn and be able to understand how security, agencies,
should work. All right. And then I clearly also believe that because it's a team of people working, whoever may not have the requisite strength may be able to fall on the other to help have a unified front in handling security matters in the country. Precisely
so. In economics, we have what we call the learning curve. So I believe that we have to continuously, learn from one another so that at a certain point in time, we will not become a liability to our position. So I do believe that they will be able to learn fast and be able to ensure that they protect our territorial boundaries.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. David Agbe. He's the Executive Director of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. We've been putting into perspective the key names that have been mentioned by President Akufo-Addo with regard to security matters: National Security Coordinator, National Security Advisor, the Minister Designate for Security, National Security, and then also we have that of Defense and Interior.